Hello, welcome to Municon Day 2. I am Briellis with the City of Gig Harbor, and I will be moderating for the Phase II Permittee Perspective on IDDE Program Implementation, Case Studies and Lessons Learned by Paul Marrinan with the City of Puyallup and Angela Vincent with Department of Ecology. This session has been pre-recorded. Please type your questions in the Q&A box. The presenter is present and will answer questions in the chat and after the presentation.
Good morning, my name is Angela Vincent. I'm a municipal stormwater planner with the Department of Ecology. With me today is Mr. Paul Marrinan, Senior Stormwater Engineer with the City of Puyallup. Our presentation is a Western Washington Phase II Permittee Perspective on IDDE Program Implementation, Case Studies, and Lessons Learned. I'll begin with a permit overview, which will include the IDDE minimum performance measures in the Phase II permit. For his part, my co-presenter Paul will provide examples and case studies to illustrate how the city implements their IDDE requirements. As stormwater professionals, we know the regulatory framework for municipal stormwater discharges differs somewhat from other NPDES permits. How so? Well, first, the municipal stormwater permits implement programs, which includes BMPs to reduce stormwater pollutants to the maximum extent practicable MEP standard. This differs from the numeric effluent limits in wastewater NPDES permits, for example. Per the federal rules, there are 6 programs, also known as minimum control measures, that are required of municipal stormwater permit programs. IDDE is one of these programs, along with education outreach, public involvement, construction site runoff control, post-construction runoff control, and pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. Second, these permits cover large geographic areas instead of individual facilities. And third, these permits have some flexibility written in to allow municipalities to prioritize their high priority problems. We'll talk about flexibility with the permit's IDDE field screening requirements, for example. A final point on the regulatory framework, here in Washington State, Ecology has delegated authority from the EPA to administer most NPDES permits. This, of course, includes the municipal stormwater general permits for Washington permittees. As the permit states, the IDDE program's purpose is to prevent, detect, characterize, trace, and remove illicit discharges and illicit connections into the MS4. Essentially, an illicit discharge is any discharge to an MS4 that is not composed entirely of stormwater. However, there are certain non-stormwater allowable discharges specified in the permit. For example, uncontaminated crawl space pump water is an allowable discharge. The permit also includes conditionally allowable discharges, such as lawn watering discharges, provided these are minimized through education outreach and water conservation efforts. Illicit connection means any infrastructure connection to the MS4 that is not intended, permitted, or used for collecting and conveying stormwater. For example, a sink or toilet that is plumbed to storm rather than to sewer. Pictured here, we have a mobile carpet cleaning business illicitly discharging to the ditch in this residential neighborhood. For carpet cleaning liquid waste, proper disposal means filtering the wash water before disposal to the sanitary sewer. The permit's IDDE minimum performance measures can be summarized as follows. A permittee must have procedures for reporting and correcting illicit connections and illicit discharges, including spills. They must educate public employees, businesses, and the public of hazards associated with illicit discharges. They must implement an illicit discharge ordinance with escalating enforcement procedures. Implementing an ICID program also means doing MS4 field screening, whether that's dry weather outfall screening, walking ditches, catch basin manhole inspections, or video inspections, for example. Publicizing a spills hotline. The public needs to know how to contact your jurisdiction when an environmental hazard or spill is observed. This number needs to be posted on your city or county website, and advertising it in other ways is recommended, such as a brochure included with your city's utility bill. Your jurisdiction's ongoing training program applies to all municipal field staff. And you must have documented procedures for characterizing the threat, tracing the source, and notifying appropriate authorities. For field screening, the Herrera Aspect 2020 ICID manual is the newest manual. It is an updated version of the 2013 ICID Field Screening and Source Tracing Manual. Next, I'll touch on field screening, response timeframes, and record keeping. In the 2013-2019 permit, the performance measure was to screen at least 40% of your MS4 by December 31st of 2017, and on average 12% each year thereafter. The performance measure in the current permit is to continue to field screen on average 12% of your MS4 each year. In addition, Phase 2s had to start tracking the total percent screened as of August 1st of 2019. There is flexibility in the permit's field screening requirement. For example, the permittee decides where to prioritize screening within their storm drainage system. Different considerations may factor. For example, a permittee may focus inspection in industrial areas or near environmentally sensitive waterways, such as a TMDL area. Similarly, the permittee determines the field screening methods so long as the permittee meets their IDDE and O&M inspection requirements under their permit. The permit includes timeframes for reporting and response as summarized here. Permittees must immediately respond and report discharges and spills into or from their MS4 that could constitute a threat to human health, welfare, or the environment. This is general condition G3 of the permit, which is an immediate notification to the Ecology Regional Office through our Environmental Complaint System, also known as ERTS. ERTS stands for Ecology's Environmental Reports Tracking System, and it is the database and notification system that Ecology uses to route all environmental complaints, both internally to our various programs and externally to our state and local partners. So while every G3 is an ERTS, not every ERTS is also a G3. Other permit timeframes include 7 days to investigate potential illicit discharges, 21 days to initiate investigation of any report or discovery of a suspected illicit connection, and upon confirming an illicit connection, using your compliance strategy in a documented effort to eliminate this IC within 6 months. Permittees must track and maintain records of their IDDE program implementation. This includes, but is not limited to, having documented field screening methods and notification procedures. For example, to the owners or operators of interconnected MS4s and to property owners. Permittees must keep records of all municipal field staff trained and the training provided. Finally, each year, permittees submit their ICID response data to Ecology, which I'll elaborate on next. New in the 2019-2024 Phase 1 and 2 permits and WSDOT's MS4 permit is a standardized reporting form for IDDE annual reporting called Water Quality Web IDDE. All permittees except secondary permittees must use Web IDDE. Web IDDE is for annual reporting specifically, and it does not replace the permit's G3 immediate reporting. A benefit of having a standardized IDDE reporting format is that it allows for an easier compliance review and the ability to analyze this data across jurisdictions. With standard reporting fields, Ecology will have aggregate data on the types of discharges or spills reported, including how often they're reported, the source tracing approach, and the elimination method used. Ecology will use this permittee data for trends assessment, and we expect our findings may help with advancing regional solutions to common problems. For the annual report due March 31st of 2022, permittees must either continue to use the Water Quality Web IDDE form or submit a .xml file that follows the schema in Appendix 12 of the Western Washington Phase II permit, Appendix 14 of the Phase 1, for those permittees exporting from their database. Permittees uploading this .xml file can validate it in Web IDDE. Permittees that intend to submit a .xml in 2022 must plan accordingly and work closely with their IT staff. If a permittee's IT staff has specific questions about the schema, that permittee may contact their Ecology Regional MS4 planner, and he or she will work to troubleshoot or find solutions. And with that final thought, I'll hand the mic to Paul to discuss the city's IDDE program. Thank you all for your attention.
Hello, my name is Paul Marrinan. I work for the City of Puyallup as a senior stormwater engineer. I currently run our municipal permit programs, manage some CIP projects, obtain grants, and work with development review staff to ensure consistency between the staff with stormwater plan reviews. I've been with the city since 2015. Before taking this job with the city, I worked as a development engineering reviewer and on the private side as an engineering consultant. Although I'm by no means an expert in IDDE, I can give you some background on what we do and what has worked for us in our future plans. I will highlight some of our stats to give you an idea of the size of the city so that you can compare your municipality to ours as I describe our program. Based on the 2019 census, we have approximately 41,000 residents. The city covers approximately 14 square miles, and the elevation of the city ranges from 30 feet in the Puyallup Valley to 520 feet as you go up this South Hill. The city of Puyallup is a Phase II municipality. The City of Puyallup currently follows the 2004 IDDE Guidance Manual for Program Development and Technical Assessments. We are transitioning to using the 2020 ICID Field Screening and Source Tracing Manual. We typically respond to 30 to 50 spills each year, and approximately half of these are reported as G3s because the spill enters the MS4. To further paint the picture of what Puyallup is dealing with, we have 6 major stormwater basins and 7 main receiving waters. We have TMDLs for fecal and sediment and dissolved oxygen on Clarks Creek. This basin is shown here in green on the west side, and a TMDL for fecal and the Puyallup River, which requires us to do some work in Deer Creek, which is in the Shaw Road Basin, shown here in yellow on the east side of the city. This slide shows general location of our outfalls. We have 88 MS4 outfalls, and we inspect many of these each year. This here paints a picture of the city's mapped MS4 infrastructure. It's a busy slide. As you see here, a major portion of the city's storm system within the right-of-way is already built out. However, we do have some natural drainage areas that do not have MS4 constructed. Among many other assets, we have approximately 7,000 catch basins, approximately 2 million lineal feet of pipe ranging from 96 inches to 4 inch. As for our staffing, the primary IDDE staff includes myself, the Stormwater Program Manager. I'm responsible for program reporting, training, and ensuring that the permit requirements are being met. The collection supervisor is my direct contact with Public Works for implementing this program. He directly coordinates and oversees the IDDE work effort to ensure permit compliance and is knowledgeable about what is happening in the field and within the system. We have one IDDE specialist. He performs the bulk of our permit required work for IDDE. He responds to spills and performs the required field screening. The collections maintenance crews help by notifying the IDDE specialist of spills and respond with additional tools to assist the IDDE specialist when necessary. Public Works has a dedicated GIS specialist who maintains the asset management software and is a backup for the IDDE specialist when he's out on leave. Our secondary and support staffing for the IDDE program includes our local source control specialist. The city implements business inspections through a partnership program with the Ecology's Has Waste program. Although a separate program, these inspections go hand in hand with our IDDE work. The LSC specialist reports spills and provides follow-up education and outreach after a spill is necessary. Among other duties, the LSC specialist reviews spill control plans for events and mobile vendors prior to permit and during events, and she oversees the Only Rain Down the Drain CV marking program. All these duties are to try to preemptively stop a spill from happening or minimize the impact of a potential spill. The Puyallup Police and Central Pierce Fire Departments are very good about calling in any spills related to motor vehicle accidents to dispatch, who then notifies Public Works. We also utilize Central Pierce to clean up hazardous waste spills within the right-of-way since they are trained for this response. New construction inspectors are a vital part of our IDDE program because they help ensure that sediment and erosion control BMPs are in place and correctly installed at construction sites. The IDDE team works with them when sediment erosion control measures on a construction site fail and turbid water discharge enters the MS4. Our code enforcement officer is a key part of the team. He is able to issue citations per our municipal code, which is our last resort in our escalating efforts. The fog inspector is another key staff. He's associated with our wastewater treatment plant. He inspects restaurants to ensure that they have pre-treatment devices installed and maintained as required. The fog inspector reports spills and helps with tracking illicit connections. We also utilize consultants and contractors on occasion. We use consultants to perform field screening duties when required. For example, we have bacteriological sampling that is required per our TMDL requirements for Clarks Creek and Deer Creek basins. In addition, we may use a private contractor for a spill response on private property and backbill the owner in certain circumstances. Or more likely, a contractor may be required to utilize a private sweeper or vector within the right-of-way when there is a pollutant discharge from their activities. As for the tools of the trade, the IDDE specialist drives a truck that always has spill control tools on board. The truck has on it, for example, PPE, kitty litter, booms, absorbent pads, dry sweep, a turbidity meter, and the IDDE guidance manual. They also carry a response flow chart that has all the authorities that are to be notified with contact information based on spill type, SSO versus other discharges of storm, as well as private contractor information in case there is a need to call for backup. City also has and utilizes a vector truck, jetter, regenerative air sweeper, as well as pollution prevention plans and spill plans at all of our public facilities. Maintenance staff also carry spill kits in all of our public works maintenance vehicles so that they can contain a spill from their vehicle if necessary, or if they see something out in the field that they could provide initial containment while waiting for the IDDE specialist to arrive. Among other tools mentioned, we also have plugs for pipes, hazardous waste placard identification tools, a spill response hotline, and website, only rain down the drain placards that are placed on most CBs, and our asset management software. I would say that our asset management software is one of our most important tools. We use Cartograph. It allows us to document and report on all of our IDDEs, as well as other types of public works assets and O&M work. We document our IDDE field screening activities in Cartograph through 4 major categories. These include walking major waterways, outfall inspections, post-rain event pond inspections, and general field screenings, which include any inspections of structures upstream of outfalls. To give a better picture of our field screening activities, I'll discuss some key points of how and when we collect data. As mentioned, we currently follow the 2004 IDDE manual, and we have a very active IDDE specialist. He is set up with a laptop in the field and a Cartograph app on his phone so that he can stay in the field much of the time for inspections. Generally, he focuses on the areas of known concern for different times of year, dry weather inspections and inspections after rain events. I will give some examples of how these appear in Cartograph and when they're performed. One of the field screening activities that we track is walking waterways. This can be done as part of other jobs or as a specific task for the day. This allows the specialist to track any pollution downstream of an outfall and to collect new outfalls that may only be visible during low flows. For example, our IDDE specialist is the main inspector for our LDS suction harvesting operation on Clarks Creek. He kayaks the creek often and takes pictures, collects data, and looks for signs of pollution and previously hidden outfalls. As mentioned, we have 88 outfalls. The data that we collect generally falls in line with the outfall reconnaissance inventory sheet in Appendix C of the 2004 IDDE manual. All assets have location, material, shape, and dimension data that is associated with them in Cartograph. And as part of the inspection, there are major condition categories that we assess. If any of them are not given a score of 100%, the inspector indicates why in the notes. Also, the physical indicator information, including color, odor, staining, turbidity, floatables, and flow are mentioned in the notes. Pictures are taken of all the outfalls during the inspection and attached in Cartograph. To give you an idea of how we set up and perform a field screening work order, before going into the field, the inspector works in Cartograph to add a few asset inspection tasks to a single work order. Once in the field, the inspector documents each inspection in Cartograph until the work order is complete. Usually, each field screening work order is only performed in one basin at a time. Examples of how these are set up would be, we can set up a work order to include dry weather flow CB inspections, or if we know there's an event going on that we want to monitor, such as a fair, meeker days, parades, or car shows, we inspect certain catch basins in the area. We then document these as field screenings as we look for issues. As mentioned before, there are many ways that we are notified of spills. To recap a bit, we are generally notified by the public through our spill hotline, from Ecology after an ERTS is reported to them, from police or fire crews, from our development review inspectors, from our maintenance crews, or our IDDE specialist. Now I will give you some examples that we have responded to. This first example is a fuel spill on private property. We received a call from 911 dispatch about this fuel spill. In this case, our IDDE specialist arrived on site and found that the property was sloped in such a way that all of the fuel was directed to CBs that were flowing to oil water separators that were connected to sanitary sewer. He checked all the other CBs in the area for sheen and odor, as well as downstream at the storm pond to verify this. He also called the sewage treatment plant and notified them of the type and quantity of spill to make sure they wouldn't have an issue handling whatever may have gotten through. The IDDE specialist stayed on site until the cleaning was completed and to make sure that there weren't any spills to the storm system related to the site cleanup. This is recorded in Cartograph as a spill response, however, not recorded as a G3 because it did not enter the MS4. The majority of this inspection was making sure the pollutant did not get into the MS4 and that it was cleaned up properly, which luckily in this case, the property owner responded quickly and had it cleaned up. This spill was reported by our maintenance staff to our IDDE specialist. Our IDDE specialist responded to find someone had left a gas station and lost a 5-gallon container of diesel fuel. It broke open, filled the gutter line, and entered the storm inlet. Luckily, there was no rain at the time of the incident. We checked downstream catch basins for sheen in order to determine how far this had spread. We determined that this spill was contained to the gutter in one catch basin. Our IDDE specialist applied dry sweep and called for the Vector truck and sweeper to clean the impacted gutter line and inlet. We called this in as required as an ERTS to the National Response Center and to the Washington Emergency Response Center. We logged this in as a G3 in Cartograph. We have many different types of spills that we respond to, along with the examples previously shown and some of the others that I have mentioned in the previous slides. Other common spills that we are called out to are for vehicle accidents, vehicle leaks, and construction stormwater runoff. As for the city's lessons learned over the years, we have many. It takes many people to run an effective IDDE program. The bulk of this work falls onto a few, however. Through internal and external coordination, we make the program the best we can. Through publicizing our hotline, storm drain stenciling, and educating at events, for example, we help ensure public is aware of when and how to report a spill or other illicit discharge within the city. We also train municipal staff on spill reporting. We can't clean up spills if we aren't alerted. Once we are alerted to a spill, having a well-supported IDDE specialist or specialists is key. They cannot do the job alone. They have to be good at cleaning up spills and doing inspections, but beyond that, they need to be good communicators and good at working with others. We try to include education and outreach in every spill response as applicable, so that the offending party can understand what BMPs they can put in place to stop a future spill. It is very helpful to have the 1-2 punch of the spill response and follow up by the LSC person. In addition, we try to preemptively stop spills with our local source control program. A local source control specialist being involved in the process will help this communication. We try to involve them prior to special events and with mobile food vendors to put waste management plans and spill plans in place. With follow-up during events to discuss these plans. The LSC specialists set the business up for success, and we believe this helps keep spills to a minimum during events. Another theme that I've touched on is how we use our asset management software. If managed and used properly, good asset management software makes tracking program implementation easier, and it makes end-of-the-year reporting to Ecology easier too. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. If you have any questions for Angela or me about this presentation, feel free to ask us during today's Q&A or at any time after this event. Thank you.
If there's any questions for Paul or Angela, you can write them in the chat box. I'm not seeing any, but thank you very much, Paul and Angela, for addressing this topic. If anyone has additional questions after this presentation, you can contact the presentation or the presenters. Their information can be found in the program. We have a question. Are you able to export in XML in Cartograph?
I know we've worked on this, but we have not been able to get it to so yes, the answer is yes, but you have to be able to match the output file exactly, and we're having some issue with it, so we've been working with Ecology on it, but the answer is yes, you are. You have to make sure all of your inputs match so that the output is exactly correct. It's not too easy, and we've had to change a lot of our inputs to get it to match the output XML file, but it is a possibility, yeah.
I guess I could just quickly, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Angela.
I was just going to say I could quickly add that for permittees that are working on getting their database to match the schema, you can, if your IT staff has technical questions, you can, that you're unable to answer, you can coordinate with your MS4, Ecology MS4 permit planner, and we would be then coordinating with IT since we're not IT experts ourselves.
What percentage of IDD incident come to light because of citizen complaints?
I don't have that data unless John Ginsky has anything that he can add to this. I know it's, I would say it's a fairly small percentage. We get a lot of our calls or IDDs responses from police and fire and our crews out there. But I would say it's a fairly small percentage. And if John can add any of that in the chat, feel free to, but I believe that's the case.
It does seem that we are getting more and more usage of the hotline call-in as the years progress. People are getting more familiar with it, and people are being more educated out in the field. The more we do out there, the more people we talk to, more people are educated on what actually spills are. Only rain down the drain. So other people might have thought something that was a spill before isn't now, or vice versa. So there seems to be getting more active call-ins to the hotline numbers.
Paul,
Thanks,
do you provide any advance notice to private property owners for inspections, and if so, how?
So if it's an illicit discharge, I would say we notify them directly, either going up to their of their door and contact them that way, giving them calls, trying to find out if it's a business, it's easier because you can there's a posted number, that sort of thing. If that's what they're talking about, because generally it's not an inspection that we'd be doing as part of the IDDE response, but we do have our local source control person who goes out and they do contact businesses generally ahead of time. If we see something that's an issue out in the field, then we'll just try to address it right away and try to contact them right away. But sometimes if we're doing a preemptive inspection, then yes, we'll try to contact them just by phone call, that sort of thing. We do have a yearly postcard we send out for like our private stormwater inspections, that sort of thing, so they're aware that they're supposed to be doing them and that we'll be contacting them to start that process. But yeah.
Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. Thanks again, Angela and Paul. Oh, here we go. Does reporting minor hazmat petroleum spills to your MS4 to the National Response Center ever cause more confusion than it should? For example, does NRC turn around and notify your fire department, then contact your mayor, etc.?
I don't believe we've had an issue with that as far as I'm aware. John, do you know of anything that's usually, if there's a confusion, that's when I would get involved, because we try to figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen again. But John, what do you think?
I don't think there's any extra confusion per se. If there is anything, I might have to be a little repetitive on my reporting. But I have everything down in a pretty good row to where the National Response Center will get the report. If I wait just a little bit, they'll get the report as I'm telling the next and so on. And Ecology, usually I have to repeat the whole report to Ecology when I go back into the third call. But the first two, the National Response Center and Emergency Response Center, those two communicate to get the report transmitted to each other fairly quickly. And then I usually deal with the spill and make sure the spill is controlled before I give Ecology a final call.
We have 1 minute, so quickly, the Vector trucks at Kitsap are not spark resistant. Do you have any spark resistant Vectors, or do you use only third-party contractors for gasoline or diesel spills?
We use our own Vector trucks in our right of way for our MS4. We only control what's in our MS4 unless the spill needs to be immediately controlled on private property. for private property spills, we'll contract or we will contact a private contractor, and the owner of the property will have to take action, and we will stay on site until that has been done, or we'll give them a window of cleanup time before the next rainfall to get everything cleaned up to specs. But we'll use our equipment immediately in the right of way and for the MS4.
I'll have to look up the spark resistant question too. I'm not certain about the spark resistance. I know we use them, so I assume they are, but that doesn't mean, I'll follow up with that.
All right, well, thanks again, Paul, Angela, and John. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.